All right, so while you're off mute, we're going to go ahead and get started with our introductions. Esperanza, why don't you go ahead and explain who you are?
Hi, I'm Esperanza Flores Garza. I've been the librarian here at Jefferson High School for 11 years and a librarian for 13. And when I started my journey, I was always thinking about how do I connect resources with our students in our school community. And while I love books and they're my number one, always, I will always be a fan. I love the way that technology can really support people and give them access to new information and ideas at their fingertips. So I feel like this is a wonderful collaboration today to talk about um, how we can connect these resources and keep the story alive, keep the students' stories alive through these comics. Very exciting. Yay.
All right, thank you so much for being a co-presenter today. We also have Annalisa Spicer, who is going to be helping with the chat. Annalisa, I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but did you want to say hello or just explain who you are?
Sure. I'm Annalisa Spicer. I have about 19 years in education. 13 of those are as an SAISD librarian. And so I started my new journey here as an ed tech specialist. And I'm excited to help Celeste out and Esperanza.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate that help. And I have been in the district in SAISD for such a long time. I started off as a student. For 12 years, I was in SAISD. And then as I graduated from college, I found that I just wanted to come back and give back to the district that helped create who I am today. So this is my this was my 17th year in SAISD. This is my second year as an ed tech instructional specialist. I have experience teaching pre-K all the way to fourth grade, and I have experience coaching teachers with technology from pre-K all the way to 12th grade. So I am still growing, and I would love to hear a little bit about some of you and what your expertise is. So if you can, those of you that are here in the chat, if you can just tell us a little bit about yourself. How many years have you been teaching, and why Canva Comics? If you want to include the school, you can also include the school. I see some people typing in the chat, so I'm going to give you some time. All right, we have a veteran educator, 33 years. I love it. Comics to express themselves. Excellent. All right, 10 years of experience. We have a lot of veteran teachers here. I love it. Another technology coach. Ooh, an end of the year video for Canva. In Canva, I absolutely love making videos in Canva as well. Earlier at the poster session, when a teacher mentioned how Canva has so many different ways to be able to engage students, could not agree more. I am constantly finding new things in Canva that excites me in ways like, how can I make my students more excited about learning? How can I bring in collaboration and creativity? And I feel like Canva is that perfect tool. If you are an SAISD teacher, then we are going to make it even easier for you to be able to create assignments for your students. If you're a Canvas user, Canvas and Canva work very well. I know there have been a couple of hiccups this past year as far as the rostering for some of the Canva accounts, but rest assured, if you are an SAISD teacher, know that we are going to do a reset of accounts, and we'll make sure that all of the students have student accounts and teachers have teachers accounts. I love that. I'm just going back into the chat. I see lots of teachers, lots of experience. I think that we're going to have some great dialogue. Like I said, this is a 2-hour training, but I think it's going to go really quickly because we're going to have some build time. So as you're continuing to put stuff in the chat, I'm going to continue glancing, but I did want to start moving along and share a little bit of the T-test connection, because a lot of times when we're a teacher, we know that we're going to create activities for our students. And if we know technology and we're able to integrate it, we're really reaching that distinguished level in the planning dimension of T-test. So when you're thinking about collecting artifacts for for the year next year, just remember that things that you're creating in Canva really do help support that T-test dimension. In addition to T-test, we also have our TATIQs. And with that TATIQ, when I was looking through it, I just had to screenshot the whole thing, because really with creating a comic, your students are really storyboarding. And when you think about how that can build across grade levels, you really see it go starting even from kindergarten. You see that storyboarding continuing to build and get more complex. So comics are something that can be used even in the lower grades. It does not have to be something older. For older students. And I feel like a lot of times teachers may feel, well, the lower grade students may not be able to do this because their motor skills are not the same, their fine motor skills are not the same as older students with drawing, but Canva makes it very easy for them to be able to move elements around to be able to create that. We also have our ISTE standards, which really goes into being a creative communicator, the way students are able to share their ideas. We also have innovative designer. They do have in Canvas so many amazing elements to be able to bring in that really helps students with choice and how they show what they've learned. But I also just wanted to share a little bit about our agenda, because I know 2 hours is a lot. You may be thinking, well, how are we going to do this? So first of all, we're going to start off with the why comics. And I have 2 amazing librarians here, and I know that they already know the why behind comics, and they're going to share that in just a little bit. So just a lot of times teachers may think, well, way back when, they may think that comics aren't necessarily instructional, but now we know better. We know that comics can really unlock a lot of potential in our students and also make them very comfortable with expressing themselves in various ways. We're also going to go over instructional uses and examples. We're going to talk a little bit about Canva basics. This is not a Canva training, so I am going to kind of see what y'all know about Canva, and then right before the break, depending on where y'all rate yourselves, we'll have a break and learn. So I will have a couple of Canva tutorials. If you are completely new to Canva and you want to grab a bite to eat or a snack during the break and watch those videos, or if most of us are pretty good with Canva, because from what I've seen in the chat, it looks like there are a lot of people that love Canva. So I have this amazing TED Talk, and Esperanza and I were geeking out about the TED Talk. So I know that she's going to be able to speak to what an amazing person he is. And then when we get back from the break, we're going to learn how to share templates. We will share a template with you, or allow you the opportunity to find a template for comic in Canva. And then we're going to create, and I'm going to have my screen shared as I create, as long as y'all are not judging too harshly on what I'm doing. And then you'll have that opportunity to jump in, ask some questions, share some ideas as well. This is a space where I love to hear various perspectives. I know from the chat that we have teachers with lots of experience. So please feel free, jump into the chat, or come off mute if you have something that you would like to share. we're not a huge group, so it shouldn't be overwhelming if you do hop off of the chat. As far as that, the next thing that we're going to do after we create is we're going to learn how to collaborate for feedback. So this is really, again, I want to show you how it can work with adults, but also this can work in your classroom with your students when they collaborate, even if it's just for feedback. And then the last step, which won't take very long, is your students have created a comic in Canva. How can you share it with families, friends, or your school? So we'll go over how to download soft copies to make it a hard copy, or just keep it as a soft copy. So print or computer-based. Any questions so far? Just shoot them in the chat. And Annalisa, if you can just let me know if there's one that comes in that's super important, so we can make sure to handle that right away. So let's go ahead and get into it. If you can, in the chat, where are you on Canva as far as your comfort level? If you are a 1, you are pretty new to Canva. Maybe you've opened it one time or not at all. If you're a 5, you could take over this training. Oh, we have an 8, or maybe Lucero thought it was a 10, but that's okay too. All right, so we got lots of 3s, some 4s. Ooh, a 5, great, great. So those of you that are 5s, please know that when we get into that building part, you're gonna have the opportunity to go hog wild with those awesome comic templates. And on that, I just want you to realize that the comics, the examples of graphics that we have in the presentation are very different. And I did that in an intentional way so that you could see there are so many different types of comics and graphics that you can add. But there are a lot of comics that have a resource page that have graphics already there. So for those students that have a difficult time making decisions, and that can be me sometimes, that kind of helps with them. All right, we have a couple of 2s, so don't worry. We have that opportunity during our break time to go into the basics of Canva as well. And there are other Canva trainings. They are here at Ready Tech Go. All right, so why comics? So first of all, I know that the big one for me is critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, and communication. But I have some experts in the field. Esperanza, can you share your why for comics?
All right, guys, thank you so much for your time. I really wanted to work on this project because I feel like that comics give like a really great juxtaposition between like a narrative, like a story that students tell that is so important in like connecting learning to like prior knowledge, right? But it also hits like multiple learning styles by including the visual. And a lot of students get really anxious when we give them this task because their drawing skills are not what they want them to be. They feel like they can't represent the images that are in their mind on the paper. So Canva gives us like a scaffold so that we can take like drawing out of the art classroom and like let go of those fears that it's visually not going to look the way we want and focus on connecting the visuals and the narrative to the learning. And when we make these multiple connections, when we like hit our topics over and over again, that is when we see the best effects of our learning, right? When we see the learning is really integrated, not just as information, but as knowledge that the students have like full access to. And so that's why comics offer something that is just a little bit different than regular learning. Regular, like, I mean, it totally goes out of the worksheet model, which we wanted to leave behind for so long. And it really moves us into that critical thinking, that higher order thinking. Oftentimes when we're doing these comics, students are gonna be working in groups. And as we know, working in groups, they're gonna have to justify their answers. They're gonna have to explain to others why these things matter. So that's another aspect, the collaboration that is really going to take kids to another level with comics. And then obviously comics communicate on the on the verbal level, but also the visual. So again, we're hitting those peaks, not only in the creation, but as they're reading other people's comics, as they're commenting on what their colleague has done, all of these things up the critical thinking ante. And so that's why we really focus on the 4 C's here. So critical thinking, which we've talked about in multiple ways, creativity, collaboration, and communication. And what I love about this is that, you know, when Celeste and I first started talking about this, she had 3 subjects down and she left off math. And I was like, why'd you leave off math, Celeste? Like, come on, like math is like, she's like, well, does math really work here? So we went and we actually like did some research, you know, librarian. And I'm like, how does this connect with math? So specifically, I'm going to tell you just really briefly how it connects the subject that like maybe is the biggest leap for most folks. And when we're talking about math, a lot of times we want to demonstrate the concepts in comics. Like what are the actual concepts in math, not just a problem. You can also do like a word problem, or you could do where they're visualizing that. Let's see, did we end up doing a slide of this? We talked about it. We do. We have more slides for instructional use. I jump ahead. I think I got it.
No, this is great.
Okay, so now we're on the next slide. Okay, so obviously ELAR, retelling, inferencing, story elements. ELAR, I think that's like just a really easy leap forward. Like everybody can connect that, right? Science, the idea of maybe putting experiments this way, I think is super fun and would make kids really think about it. I'm also thinking with science, the idea of the scientific method, which is so important and goes across all grade levels. Um, that I'm thinking about my science teacher, who Annalisa might have known, who talked about science as a pair of shoes. And if we could have like a visualization of that, like the visualization of the pair of shoes that I still remember like 25 years later, and I still talk about science that way, when we have those visual connections, that's when we can really integrate that learning. With social studies, I don't know if you guys have read any of the Nathan Hill Hazardous Tales, but those comics are fantastic, and they tell really interesting stories that kids love about the Titanic, or about Toussaint Louverture, or about the heroes of the Alamo. And our students can make smaller versions of that are super exciting. And then with math, I wanted to get into math a little bit more than the other subjects because I think it is that bigger leap. When we're talking about math, it's not just about plugging in numbers, right, into formulas, but it's about the concepts. And when we are looking at comics and math, we can talk about those concepts, how they actually work. We could play out stories, like I was saying, like when we're doing like word problems, which are the bulk of what students are doing on state testing now, right? And so for them to be able to know how to pause and visualize these problems and to have that practice is so essential. So and then we can, when we think about creativity, we can talk about the idea that um, they have to be creative in order to solve problems. There may be different ways to get at the same thing, and the comics can help them visualize different manners to get to the same answer. And then collaboration, again, working together, being able to synthesize information into knowledge is so crucial, and comics help us with that. So, yay!
I love it. Thank you, Esperanza, for sharing. And she did make a believer out of me with math, and to the point where I was focused specifically on getting better and stronger with how I could support maybe a math teacher that wants to bring in Canva Comics. So with that said, I do have a couple of examples of comics that you may have in your classroom to kind of give students the opportunity to explore what they look like, how the format of them if they're unfamiliar with comics. Of course, we have Elar. This is my favorite graphic novel. Also, A Wrinkle in Time as a graphic novel. We have some science examples, social studies examples, and also this algebra example. And I actually found a PDF of this that I'm going to share in the chat. And I do have a lot of resources that I will be sharing along with this presentation. But it's just a really great opportunity to kind of see how you can use comics in math and it be a challenging subject like algebra is for some students. But I also want to know a little bit about what kind of comics or graphic novels that you like. So if you can in the chat, can you share some of your favorite comics or graphic novels? It could be one that you're reading now or have in your classroom, or maybe just one that you liked or enjoyed as a child or student, youngster. I'm going to go ahead and start. My favorite, my go-to was Garfield. Garfield could do no wrong when I was little. Okay, we got Ziggy. I remember Ziggy. Okay, Kwame Alexander. I have not checked that one out, but I am interested. Blonde. Now, Annalisa, I know that at Lowell, you really curated an excellent collection of graphic novels and comics for your students. How did you decide what went into the library when you pick for your students?
I basically worked a lot on what were their needs. So we had a lot of struggling readers and students from out of country, like Venezuela, Honduras, Colombia. And so I looked at their reading levels, what their interests were, as well as what would also build. I was a secondary English teacher, so I basically tried to work as a lot of what's going to help them, because again, with ELAR, graphic novels are amazing for your English language learners, your special ed students, at building inference. Especially inference is a huge weakness in our TEKS across the district. And so I always tell teachers, don't diss graphic novels or manga, especially because students have to use their higher critical thinking skills to move from one panel to the next to interpret or infer what is happening in the story. And so I really use a lot of these huge diversity or variety of literature as well as manga to get our kids interested in learning the different processes of our TEKS or the foundations. And again, I love Kwame Alexander because, our kids love sports. And so what a better way to really get their interest is with, one, you're integrating poetry, integrating graphic novels for those who are having trouble reading, and also they're having to make inferences. I made a lot of quizzes in Canvas using graphic novels or comics or manga, and the kids really responded to it.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing. And for those of you that may be new to comics, there are some awesome examples in the chat. And as we go through, if one pops into your head, feel free to drop it in the chat, because this is a spot where I want us to be collaborating with ideas. When you go to add more graphic novels or comics in your classroom, as far as what students are going to consume, we had some awesome ideas on how to do that. So thank you so much, Annalisa. Anybody else have anything to share? Again, you are more than welcome. There are only a few of us, so you can come off of chat if there is ever something you would like to add. But I did want to go ahead and move along because it is 9:24, and I do want us to be able to have time to be able to build later. I did include some student examples, and I tried to focus more on the old school way of integrating comics in your classroom. So the whole pen and paper way. And earlier it was mentioned how students would kind of have that hang up with, well, I don't know how to draw, so I can't do a comic. And so then you would have like that one student that was very artistic, that felt comfortable to put themselves out there. But again, Canva, comics in Canva helps raise that floor, helps those students that may be reluctant with drawing to feel comfortable to use what is in Canva to help them express themselves. So right here we have an example of the water cycle as a comic. And then this one over here, and I love the way the teacher used two different books that are also graphic novels or comics. And just to clarify the difference between graphic novels and comics, graphic novels tend to be longer, whereas comics are shorter. That's the fastest way I can think to describe it. But here we have students, very lower grade students, able to add dialogue in a very simple 3-frame comic here. And you see the collaboration as well. Sometimes having a partner or a group member to help find that look that you're trying to capture in your comic. And I love this expression that the little boy has on his face, and you see his partner here using that as an inspiration. And then over here we have a narrative comic. So I thought about how amazing this would be to help those struggling writers plan out their writing. And I always had difficulty I couldn't always have 100% of my students that wanted to plan when it came to their writing. And comics, I think, is a great, easy way to be able to help those students visualize what they want to put down on paper. And then down here, we have an example of using comics. It's World War II, and these are different scenarios if you look closely. And again, I will share this presentation. You can zoom in, but I also have the links to get more that are like this to be able to help you see how you can bring it into your classroom and see how other teachers have used it. The key moments in World War II. So I was thinking, what a great idea to be able to have a collaborative assignment in the classroom where you cover a big event like World War II, but all of the smaller events that happen throughout the war, and each student or partners can work together to help illustrate that. So any questions so far? I know we've been going a little fast with that. Just know a break is coming up pretty soon. Now here are some examples of some comics made in Canva, and I did try to keep it instructional based because I know that's why we're here as teachers. So I tried to do a various age range, but usually when we're looking at these, you can really up the rigor in anything. This one right here is Pizza Fractions. I absolutely loved it because, again, Esperanza had a lot of amazing things to say about bringing in math. And here we have an example of using comics to help a student visualize this problem. So a lot of times when students are tackling word problems in math, they really struggle with that. So this is an awesome example of having students work on that. This one over here is determining a garden perimeter, and all of these are available for you to have the template, customize it, and share it with your students. So not a lot of work has to be done on your part to be able to have your students create something like this. Forms of energy at the beach. And I love this summer vacation. Right now, we are in the beginning of our summer break or close to it if you're not out yet. But when your students come back and you're trying to figure out, well, how do I want to get to know my students, find out what they did over the break, this is a great example of getting them started with something like a narrative on their summer vacation. For those lower grades, just looking at routine, something very simple, but being able to share something like that. And what I love about staying at home, I like this because in a way it's a persuasive starter for students to be able to think about, okay, if this is what I want to do, this is how I can support my idea. So any questions about what we've done so far or Canva Comics? All right, so we're looking pretty good. We're gonna go ahead. Earlier, we had some people rate themselves on Canva. The last time I saw was mostly ones, a couple of twos, lots of threes, fours, and fives. So I would like to take this time to be able to see, I'm gonna show y'all the two different options. This first option is the one for getting to know Canva a little bit more. And then this one is the TED Talk. Now, knowing that we're at Ready Tech Go and there are other amazing sessions by Canva, I really would like to do this one, but I want to give you all the choice as well. So if you want to, during the break, have your break and learn be with learning a little bit more about Canva, I want you to put a 1 in the chat. And if you would like to hear this amazing TED Talk, then hold up a 2 in the, or not hold up, put in the chat, please, because that's the easier way. I know a lot of cameras are turned off and I completely understand. All right, I'm seeing some 2s so far, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, looking like we have a winner, winner chicken dinner. So we're gonna go ahead and do this second one.
Can I give a little intro to Jean Yang?
Sure, I would love that intro. Go ahead.
I'm so glad that you guys feel comfortable enough to go ahead and go into, learning a little bit more about comics in the classroom directly and less about Canvas in general. Jean Yang, if you're not familiar with him, first, kind of broke through as an innovative author when he did American Born Chinese, which is right now being turned into a Disney series. If you haven't caught it, my kid said it's mid, but the book is better. But we know the book is always better. So he did that. He also was highlighted. Actually, I saw some Northside folks in here at Library Palooza several years ago. He was brought in, and I got to hear him speak there, where he talked a lot about how he was able to continue the comics from the Avatar: The Last Airbender series. And if there's anybody who has kids that are aged, like, I don't know, my kids are 10 to 15, and they grew up on Avatar: The Last Airbender. But he was what's really cool is those comics where he continued the stories from the Nickelodeon show. There's an annotated version that I think, like, if you guys don't have access to, it'd be a great thing to have in your classrooms, or that you can get from the library, that talks a lot about too the choices they made when they do comics. And so it really goes into that critical thinking that we know is happening, that is invisible with our students, but it's made visible in the annotated versions of those comics, which I hope, if you don't have access to, let me know, because I know how to get them, and they're awesome. So that's Jean Yang. He's fantastic, and I know you're just going to love hearing him talk about comics in class.
And we will be sharing our contact information, so we are going to be able to stay in touch with y'all. So just know that that is coming. Here we go. Let me know if you are having any trouble hearing it.
At Accelerate 3D, we use large-size, high-speed 3D printing to help hardware companies bridge the gap between prototype and mass production. So Windows 11 Pro and Dell computers are what help us achieve our goals.
When I was in the 5th grade, I bought an issue of DC Comics Presents number 57 off of a spinner rack at my local bookstore. And that comic book changed my life. The combination of words and pictures did something inside my head that had never been done before. And I immediately fell in love with the medium of comics. I became a voracious comic book reader, but I never brought them to school. Instinctively, I knew that comic books didn't belong in the classroom. My parents definitely were not fans, and I was certain that my teachers wouldn't be either. After all, they never used them to teach. Comic books and graphic novels were never allowed during silent, sustained reading, and they were never sold at our annual book fair. Even so, I kept reading comics, and I even started making them. Eventually, I became a published cartoonist, writing and drawing comic books for a living. I also became a high school teacher. This is where I taught, Bishop O'Dowd High School in Oakland, California. I taught a little bit of math and a little bit of art, but mostly computer science, and I was there for 17 years. When I was a brand new teacher, I tried bringing comic books into my classroom. I remember telling my students on the first day of every class that I was also a cartoonist. It wasn't so much that I was planning to teach them with comics, it was more that I was hoping comics would make them think that I was cool. I was wrong. This was the 90s, so comic books didn't have the cultural cachet that they do today. My students didn't think I was cool, they thought I was kind of a dork. And even worse, when stuff got hard in my class, they would use comic books as a way of distracting me. They would raise their hands and ask me questions like, Mr. Yang, who do you think would win in a fight, Superman or the Hulk? I very quickly realized I had to keep my teaching and my cartooning separate. It seemed like my instincts in 5th grade were correct. Comic books didn't belong in the classroom. But again, I was wrong. A few years into my teaching career, I learned firsthand the educational potential of comics. One semester, I was asked to sub for this Algebra 2 class. I was asked to long-term sub it. And I said yes, but there was a problem. At the time, I was also the school's educational technologist, which meant every couple of weeks, I had to miss 1 or 2 periods of this Algebra 2 class because I was in another classroom helping another teacher with a computer-related activity. For these Algebra 2 students, that was terrible. I mean, having a long-term sub is bad enough, but having a sub for your sub, that's the worst. In an effort to provide some sort of consistency for my students, I began videotaping myself giving lectures. I then give these videos to my sub to play for my students. I tried to make these videos as engaging as possible. I even included these little special effects. For instance, after I finished a problem on the board, I'd clap my hands and the board would magically erase.
At Accelerate 3D, we use large-size, high-speed 3D printing to help hardware companies bridge the gap between prototype and mass production. So Windows 11 Pro and Dell computers are what help us achieve our goals.
I thought it was pretty awesome. I was pretty certain that my students would love it, but I was wrong. These video lectures were a disaster. I had students coming up to me and saying things like, "Mr. Yang, we thought you were boring in person, but on video, you are just unbearable." So as a desperate second attempt, I began drawing these lectures as comics. I do these very quickly with very little planning. I just take a Sharpie, draw one panel after the other, figuring out what I wanted to say as I went. These comics lectures would come out to anywhere between 4 and 6 pages long. I'd Xerox these, give them to my sub to hand to my students. And much to my surprise, these comics lectures were a hit. My students would ask me to make these for them, even when I could be there in person. It was like they liked cartoon me more than actual me. This surprised me because my students are part of a generation that was raised on screens. So I thought for sure they would like learning from a screen better than learning from a page. But when I talked to my students about why they liked these comics lectures so much, I began to understand the educational potential of comics. First, unlike their math textbooks, these comics lectures taught visually. Our students grow up in a visual culture, so they're used to taking in information that way. For video, comics are what I call permanent. In a comic, past, present, and future all sit side by side on the same page. This means that the rate of information flow is firmly in the hands of the reader. When my students didn't understand something in my comics lecture, they could just reread that passage as quickly or as slowly as they needed. It was like I was giving them a remote control over the information. The same was not true of my video lectures, and it wasn't even true of my in-person lectures. When I speak, I deliver the information as quickly or as slowly as I want. So for certain students and certain kinds of information, these two aspects of the comics medium, its visual nature and its permanence, make it an incredibly powerful educational tool. When I was teaching this Algebra 2 class, I was also working on my master's in education at Cal State East Bay. And I was so intrigued by this experience that I had with these comics lectures that I decided to focus my final master's project on comics. I wanted to figure out why American educators have historically been so reluctant to use comic books in their classrooms. Here's what I discovered. Comic books first became a mass medium in the 1940s with millions of copies selling every month. And educators back then took notice. A lot of innovative teachers began bringing comics into their classrooms to experiment. In 1944, the Journal of Educational Sociology even devoted an entire issue to this topic. Things seemed to be progressing. Teachers were starting to figure things out. But then along comes this guy. This is child psychologist Dr. Frederick Wertham. And in 1954, he wrote a book called Seduction of the Innocent, where he argues that comic books cause juvenile delinquency. He was wrong. Now, Dr. Wortham was actually a pretty decent guy. He spent most of his career working with juvenile delinquents. And in his work, he noticed that most of his clients read comic books. What Dr. Wortham failed to realize was in the 1940s and 50s, almost every kid in America read comic books. Dr. Wortham does a pretty dubious job of proving his case, but his book does inspire the Senate of the United States to hold a series of hearings to see if, in fact, comic books caused juvenile delinquency. These hearings lasted for almost 2 months. They ended inconclusively, but not before doing tremendous damage to the reputation of comic books in the eyes of the American public. After this, respectable American educators all backed away, and they stayed away for decades. It wasn't until the 1970s that a few brave souls started making their way back in. And it really wasn't until pretty recently, maybe the last decade or so, that comics have seen more widespread acceptance among American educators. Comic books and graphic novels are now finally making their way back into American classrooms. And this is even happening at Bishop O'Dowd, where I used to teach. Mr. Smith, one of my former colleagues, uses Scott McCloud's Understanding Comics in his literature and film class because that book gives his students the language with which to discuss the relationship between words and images. Mr. Burns assigns a comics essay to his students every year. By asking his students to process a prose novel using images, Mr. Burns asks them to think deeply, not just about the story, but also about how that story is told. And Ms. Murrock uses my own American-born Chinese with her English 1 students. For her, graphic novels are a great way of fulfilling a Common Core standard. The standard states that students ought to be able to analyze how visual elements contribute to the meaning, tone, and beauty of a text. Over in the library, Ms. Counts has built a pretty impressive graphic novel collection for Bishop O'Dowd. Now, Ms. Counts and all of her librarian colleagues have really been at the forefront of comics advocacy, really since the early 80s, when a school library journal article stated that the mere presence of graphic novels in the library increased usage by about 80% and increased the circulation of non-comics material by about 30%. Inspired by this renewed interest from American educators, American cartoonists are now producing more explicitly educational content for the K-12 market than ever before. A lot of this is directed at language arts, but more and more comics and graphic novels are starting to tackle math and science topics. STEM comics and graphic novels really are like this uncharted territory, ready to be explored. America is finally waking up to the fact that comic books do not cause juvenile delinquency, that they really do belong in every educator's toolkit. There's no good reason to keep comic books and graphic novels out of K-12 education. They teach visually, they give our students that remote control. The educational potential is there, just waiting to be tapped by creative people like you. Thank you.
All right, so that was our break time. I hope you enjoyed that video. Does anybody want to share their thoughts if you were able to catch the whole video or any parts of it? The part that really resonated with me was the part where he mentioned how the students could read it at their own pace, reread it if they needed to. And that made me think about blended learning and how that's a tool that a lot of teachers use in the classroom. And so I really thought, well, wow, that's another way that you can bring in comics into your classroom. Anyone else like to come off mute and share their thoughts? All right, it's looking like we're probably still getting back in. I see, I see some chat. Yeah, I didn't realize that either. That was very interesting to me too. And I think that, you know, kind of relevant in our current climate right now. So now that we're back from break, let's go ahead and learn a little bit more, and then we'll start creating. So I have a couple of templates here that I'm about to put into the chat. Now, if you are a person that rated yourself, comfortable with Canva, if you want to go into your Canva account and find a comic template that you would like to either share or use and build from, we are going to have a time to be able to take a look at each other's, collaborate, give feedback. So at this time, you are going to be able to do that. If you are brand new to comics, don't worry about it. I do have both of these that I'm going to be putting in the share link. So let me go ahead and do that now. The first one coming in is the pizza fractions. So if you would like to customize this one, and if you are brand new to Canva and you are not an SAISD employee, Canva is free. If you are an SAISD employee, you can go through ClassLink. Okay, so that's the pizza fraction one, simple one. So if you're feeling a little nervous about your first Canva comic experience, I would recommend that one. This next one is my summer vacation. I thought this one would be fun, knowing that a lot of us are about to go into teacher summer or school professional summer. So I just wanted to give you an opportunity to share some of the cool things that you may be up to this summer vacation. So we have a couple of different options in there. And like I said, if you already feel pretty comfortable with this, then go ahead and find a template to be able to work on. What you're going to do is when you click on that link, it'll take you directly to the template that I've shared. When you are in the classroom, it's as simple as this. You can drop them a link like that. You can also create an assignment. If you were able to attend a poster session with Juan earlier today, he did go over creating an assignment in Canva. But if you're new to Canva and just getting a share link is the easiest way for you, or share a template, that's how you do it. All right, so let's go ahead and get to creating. So I've mentioned your options here. I just wanted to have them on the screen. We are again going to share, so please do spend some time working on this. I did set a large chunk of time for us to be able to create. I'm only going to keep this slide up for the duration of the creation, making time. When this song is over, I will stop sharing my screen and I will go through the process of taking a template that has been shared with me and opening it in Canva to create my comic. So for those of you that are brand new that need that extra support, just know at the end of this song, I will get started with that. As in the meantime, go ahead and open up those templates. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing my screen. Like I said, for those of you that are brand new to comics, I am going to show how to open a template and start creating in Canva. Feel free to chime in if you have any questions or you're having difficulty. If you feel comfortable, again, you have free reign on what type of comic that you pick to be able to share later. We are going to be working on collaborating to give feedback later. So to have something to be able to share would be really amazing. I'm also sending in the chat best fonts for comics, just in case for those of you that are already pretty strong in Canva. If you want to take a look at that to help, I know that sometimes I go into font wormholes and have a difficult time deciding which one I want to do. So here I go. I'm going to start with opening the template and then I will share my screen. All I did was I clicked on the link. All right, are y'all able to see what I am sharing right now? My screen? Yes? All right, great. All right, so I chose my summer vacation. So this was just the template that I opened up, and this is me through the Canva browser. There is a Canva app for those of you that may be using Canva at home, if that is something that you're more interested in. And just remember that this session is being recorded. So at any time, if you ever need to get back or rewatch this, you have that flexibility. So I saw the while you're driving, so just know, no worries. I completely understand. All right, so I'm going to select customize this template. I'm going to say no thanks, just because I feel that most educators are probably using the web-based Canvas. So I want it to look the way you may see it on your screen. It looks just slightly different if you have the app. All right, so here's the first page. If you notice the bottom in Canva, you have an overview of the number of slides or pages. So over here, I'm just going to show you, this is the first one. It has an example. So really awesome to help students get started. Here is a page of just the empty frame. And then you have instructions here. So this one does not have a resource page like some of them do, but just know that just looking over here, I have other results that I've already found, but I want to show you how you can find anything. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to keep mine with my summer vacation. So similar to most word processors or Google Slides, PowerPoint, I'm going to go ahead and just click on what I want to change. And then I'm going to come and explore the elements. Yes, I could use some of these elements over here, but I like to explore, and I want you to be able to see just how many options you can have. So my summer plans, I know I'm going to get the settings started. I'm going to come over here on the left-hand side, and I'm going to select elements. And I'm going to search for the setting. Now, I put beach, I did a search. If you're new to Canva, you'll notice it's broken down into photos, graphics, videos, audio as examples. I'm going to take a look at graphics. See some good. Just gonna bring it in. All I did was I clicked and dragged to bring it in. I can resize it like this. I can even make it larger and crop it if I need to. So if you notice, I double clicked and now I can crop it. So I'm gonna just bring it up to fit in my frame. And again, feel free to jump off of mute if you have any questions particular here. And even when I searched for beach, notice it has all sorts of different graphics that I could add to it. So maybe it's not always going to look like this one. I can always change it. You have different types of beaches, water, different things that you may see. I love crabs, so I'm going to go ahead and bring one of these little fellas in. You can resize after I dragged it in. I'm just going to make it smaller. So thinking about those lower grade students, I use that corner, dragged it in. If you want to rotate it around, notice as I moved over here, you see a curved arrow. So you can bring it around like that. The thing I love about Canva, and I think is really important when you're using some of the pre-made elements, is the ability to be able to flip it as well. So when you come up to the top and you select flip, you can flip it horizontally, vertically. So this is really helpful when something needs to be in a specific spot, but it's just not working out. So you have a couple of options. You can rotate it, you can flip it just like this. Now I'm going to do another background. So again, if you are coming in, haven't seen the first part, I'm literally just dragging it in. I could do the same setting, I could change it. This one looks a little more serene. And really just want to kind of show you the different elements. I'm not trying to make it such a cohesive design. And believe me, if my talking is for those of you that are not so new, that are relatively new to Canva. I will not get my feelings hurt if you need to mute me because you're working on it and you already know Canva. So this is really the talking guided part is for those people that rated themselves ones and twos. If you're a 5, of course, mute me and I'll just do some crazy waves and move the slides around when we're done. But we are going to it's about 10 o'clock right now. So I'm in the middle of creating this comic, but just know that you will have until about 10:20 to work on this. So we have a lot of time to be able to make your comic. When you're creating it, if you have a question, again, come off of mute, put it in the chat. If you've created one and you're just waiting for the collaboration part, just by all means, about 10:15, 10:20 is I'm going to gauge where y'all are at to see if you need more time. But I did want to give you that in case you're waiting, expecting something. We do have this creation time right now.
And can I add something real quick, Celeste?
Sure.
Okay, I just wanted to add that when you look at those other templates, one of the things I love about that we talked about is available on some of them is that they have resources. So while you can go and always search for additional backgrounds, etc., a lot of the comics will have characters already, bubbles that you can like just copy and paste right into the screen, and it makes it really easy for your students who maybe that's a lot of steps for them. Maybe they're at a younger level, and like look at this, the gold and black one, comic title, the top, Celeste, that one is really cute, and you can see that it already has the text bubbles and all these characters. This is something that would definitely go with like, middle school or high school, but it also has the resources right there because we don't want students to go down the rabbit hole of, like Celeste was saying, well, this isn't the same style. Is that going to bother me? Right here, you have everything in one piece. If you want them to focus on the communication and have creativity, but also like kind of clamp it down because sometimes we need to go. This will do that for you. And so I don't want you to feel like there's going to be too much freedom and they're going to get overwhelmed. There are resources that are, where everything's right there and they can access and focus on the communication that they need to for them. Thanks for giving me that minute.
No, I love it. And you are completely correct. And that, it's a teachable moment, right? Because earlier when I shared the template, I already had that link for you. So say you are searching for a comic template and you want to be able to share it with your students. When you click over here on these 3 dots, you'll see share right here. Okay. Now you may want to, like I did preparing for this training, I went shopping through Canva for different Canva templates that were available. So when you find one you like, you can also star it, because when you star something, you're basically moving it over so you can take a closer look and maybe using it or how you want to use it in the future. So that is the way I shared the link for you. But also know that, like what Esperanza was saying, if you already have an idea of what you want your students to create, you can even further add to these templates by customizing it, and then you can share it with your students. So it doesn't have to be just these 3 slides that are shared. When you customize it, you can add maybe another page. Maybe you want to have specific characters used, or if it's the lower grade students, giving them another slide of maybe instructions, or maybe including some of the characters there so they don't feel so overwhelmed. So thank you for that teachable moment, Esperanza, because again, we are here as a community of learners, and so I welcome anyone else that has anything that you would like to share or other tidbits to help give other people advice as they tackle bringing comics in Canva to your classroom. So I'm just going to go back to what I was working on for those of you that need me to kind of share what I was doing. I'm going to try to show a couple of different options that are available when you're working. So if not, continue building. Like I said, we have until about 10:15, 10:20. I'll gauge to see where everyone's at. All right, so I'm back in my beach elements. Maybe, oh, see, this one's so large. So again, bringing in these corners. Now I'd like to include person. And I'm searching girl sitting. Notice what happens. They have different options here. I'm also going to be doing a character builder poster session tomorrow where I will show how to build a character, and you can create a whole custom character in Canva, which is really cool. So I'm going to try to find the one that I think looks the most like me now. I'm noticing a lot of them look like they're at home and not necessarily at a beach. So let's see. If I add summer. Oh, I got one right here. So really it's about picking the best one. So here is one in a bikini. Let's see if I can find, this one's more. So when you bring in an element like this, sometimes you're able to customize the color of the bathing suit. And this one, when it's highlighted, I noticed that I don't have anything pop up right here with colors like I did when I had my crab here. So you can see when I selected the crab, I have these colors. So if I wanted to say this crab's going to be a blue crab, I'm over here just selecting these to have different. You can see now my crab is blue. Now on this character that I just brought in, I don't have that, but I do still have the ability to edit it. So I can take a look at some of the filters that are available. There are some apps that are available to be able to change things. So I'm going to do, just to kind of show you one, not like this is going to be one necessarily that I would use for this character. I just wanted to show you how you can change things. So if you want to create something, but you don't want to have your students feel left out, you can always do a person that's a color like this, just to be completely inclusive. But again, that's how I was able to change it. So you're still able to edit things as well. Coming back to my design, I don't like that it has this yellow space up here. So I'm going to try to add some clouds. I'm just in elements. Again, you spend a lot of time in elements when you're building in Canva Comics. Now it bothers me with the yellow background. So what I'm going to do, keep my cloud. Drag this in, resize it. And I think I'm going to want to crop it as well. Again, double click. Okay, so I want to show, I brought this in and you notice my cloud is behind it. So if you're new to Canva, you can come over to position, you can come to layers, and you can see all of the different layers here. So I want to bring my cloud above it. Another way to do this would be to right click on it. And you click on this right here. You see send backward or send to back. So that's two different ways to be able to change the position. I think the easiest is position because it's easy to remember. But just like that, I was able to add some clouds to my design. Maybe I would like to have, I know my cousin's gonna go, we're gonna do a cousin's trip, so I'm gonna do Sometimes you'll find an element that matches better with what you want, like I already see here. This looks more like my cousin. Be careful about making them too small. So you can also talk about perspectives, bring in some art elements with your students. You could talk about horizontal lines, the line of horizon, things like that. So there are lots of different ways you can bring in comics in different times just to be able to bring in different terminologies. Clicking on edit image, I'm going to do the same. I just want to show for this, we've been spending a lot of times in graphics, but this time I'm going to come over to photos to show you that you can bring in actual photos into a comic as well. I like that mixture of bringing in pictures and animation or illustration. Double tap. Again, please feel free to come off of mute if you have any questions. I just want to make sure that you're building something so that we have something to be able to collaborate and share later so that you can see how your students will be able to do that as well. I'm going to change the color of these fish to stand out a little bit more in the dark water. So I can't find the picture that I want just exactly as I want it. So I want to show you how you can even layer two objects together to be able to create exactly what you want. So I'm going to do did I misspell smiling? Wow, my brain is on summer vacation. Okay, so I'm bringing in just a face because I'm going to have it actually hanging off a little bit. So I'm cropping it. I'm going to bring it down. And I saw, I'm going to go back to snorkeling. Okay, I'm going to pick this one right here. This is kind of similar to the one I have. Okay, notice, come over here, too big, but I can easily resize it. A little more. Sometimes when you want to get precise, zooming in and then just using the arrow keys on your keyboard is helpful to be able to be more precise with moving something in Canva. So a little bit, there we go. So that's how you can actually layer some images together. Now I'm gonna stop the talking so that you can continue to create, and then when I come off, it'll be about 10:20, and I'll see where you're at with your time. If you are already done with your comic, if you can just put in the chat just to let me know. If not, I'm gonna ask for about how much time in a little bit to give you a heads up. Esperanza, would you like to share? I can stop my share screen so that you can have a moment to share. All right.
Hey, I just wanted to share a little bit from one that I had done quickly. So this is one where I kind of followed like what Jean Yang had said, and instead of like giving just visually verbal directions or even having them written down, I went ahead and included the directions in a comic that it might be like the first thing that they get. So this says, you know, my dream job, and I'm giving the background. Good morning, students. Yesterday was career day. Tell me about your favorite presentation. So this would be something where students would just be, I imagine, for lower grades, where they'd be focused on retelling, summarizing, and then also maybe having, I asked them to use the next slide to say what they saw, which is summarizing, like who you saw, what they shared, and then the critical thinking part is, how does this impact your own thinking of what you might want to do as a career? So, and we have the little kids saying, yay. I also included the directions again in a more linear way for students that need that kind of support. And since this project will be shared, everybody can go back and reread those things that we want for them to do over and over again as needed. I started by giving just a prompt. I met a police officer, and I have the students here. One thing you might want to show them is how you can flip a picture, which is something that you know, can be very useful when you're storytelling. It makes more sense to have it a certain way. But that's a really simple thing that I think kids will get a big kick out of. And then, of course, these can move. Now, these are images. You're going to have to add a text box, of course, to go inside. But, you know, one thing you can show kids is you can always copy and paste your text box right in there and then start typing to keep the same font and everything going. I also went ahead and made a couple of different templates for how the frames could look for the students. And then the illustration sets are already there with a lot of different types of speakers. So who might have been at career day, and then some students, how they might respond to it on the speech balloon. So I just wanted to give you like another like kind of way of doing things. I'm always concerned with students going down rabbit holes. So I tried to give them as many as much support as possible to get started in the work. And so I hope this was helpful or useful to you in any way. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. That was very helpful. I love that idea of being able to share instructions like that for students. I'm going to go ahead and just, if y'all are building, if you do not need me to continue to show, I would like to reveal, like the rest of you will reveal your designs in a moment with each other. So we're getting close to that 10:20 mark. So I just wanted to see in the chat about how much more time you may need to work on your comic. So if you are already done, just say done. If not, please tell me about how many more minutes you would need to be able to complete a comic. Because again, it's really powerful to be able to see how students can collaborate to leave feedback as well. Okay, we have one that is done. Just waiting to see where the rest of y'all are. All right, so 2 minutes and about done. So I see 2 to 3 minutes. So we'll go ahead and say we'll be done at 10:25. Okay, 10:25. So for those of you that are already done, ooh, all right, Louise is already ready to share hers. I am going to show you another way to be able to share as well. But thank you for sharing that template. So I'm going to start again at 10:25. We have 2 more minutes until we're going to share what we have and go over how we can collaborate. 2 more minutes of working on your comic. All right, it is 10:25, so we are going to go ahead and we had a design that was shared in the chat by Louise, and we did have some difficulty opening it. So Esperanza, can you share with us what should we do if we get an error like this? What did we need to go back and fix?
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and clear my screen real quick. So when I click on, oh, I shared the wrong screen. But when I click on it, it says you do not have permission to open this. And so when you go to share your item, you're going to, the collaboration link is what you're probably sharing, and you're going to want to make sure that you adjust this to the appropriate level. So it could be just your campus, or it could be anyone with the link. And so if you click anyone with the link, then when you send that link, everybody can open it. That's it, pretty simple. But I wanted, it's the kind of thing that can really uh, stop you up if you don't have it. So now you know.
All right, thank you for sharing that. That is one way to be able to share. So Canva has a lot of different ways. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen to go over another way to be able to share a design. Take me a couple of clicks to get there. All right. So another way to be able to share your screen to collaborate would be to share our email addresses. So that is actually one of the ways that you don't have to have it be completely public. So if you do have some students in the classroom and you may not want everything to be public, you want it to remain private, student emails are a great opportunity if you're collaborating with your team. Team collaborate. So emails are a really awesome way to be able to share. So I'm going to go ahead and walk y'all through that. So if you can, those of you that have finished a design, if you can put your email address in the chat, I'm going to go ahead and drop in Esperanza and mine as well. So you can share yours with us, and then I will show you how to do that in Canva. So here are our emails. If you are, again, another way I mentioned before would be an assignment. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing so that I can show you sharing in Canva. I see some emails there, I see a couple of other shares. this is the way I would do it in the classroom, would be to be able to share my design with an email address. So I'm coming over here. Here is my design. I'm going to come over to share. Just like Esperanza showed before, you can do the share link where everyone has access, but sometimes you do want to be able to kind of control that. So I'm just going to go in and I'm going to, let's see some emails here. I'll send it to Leanne Arnold. So I see her email address. I'm going to come over here. Notice when I put the email address, I'm going to make sure I specify what kind. Now, because we're just collaborating to leave comments, I'm not going to do edit because I don't want to mess up any designs. This is, again, up to you in your classroom. Maybe you start your students with collaborating and only to comment. And then as they get better with that, then you can extend it to be working together on something. Just like any group work, you know, sometimes that's a little tricky to be able to do when students are all jumping in at the same time. So it's really up to you, maybe work a little and then share and make it editable. So I'm going to click on comment because I do want, and I would love for everyone to be able to share some of your feedback. Just typing a quick message. I'm going to say send. I'm going to click invite to team. Oh, looks like we are only able to share in the domain. So teachable moment for us too. I've never tried to share with someone from outside of SAISD. So then Esperanza's way. So there are lots of different ways to be able to share. But if you want to be private with SAISD, just know SAISD teachers, you would have that ability to be able to share with each other. So I'm going to go through the same steps, but this time I'm going to share with someone within our network. So that would be next one. Okay, I'm going to switch it over again to Canva Comic. Send. Invite to team. And just like that, it'll notify Artie that I have shared something in Canva for him to be able to comment. So I see a couple of other ones. So as you can see, there are quite a few email addresses. If you are outside of SAISD or you are sharing with someone outside of SAISD, just remember to do the share link. If you are wanting to drop it in so we can take a look, just remember to make sure that it says everyone can access. So already we have quite a few here. I'm going to go ahead and click on some to be able to share out some of these different ideas, starting up at the top. And if I share yours, if you could speak a little to what you created. I'm going to start with, take a look at, all right, Ron, can you talk a little bit about what you created? All right, looks like maybe Ron stepped away for a moment or is unable to talk. So when you are in this mode, notice it is view only, so we wouldn't be able to comment. But again, there's always a third way with Canva. So being able to share like this and get feedback like this is also a completely acceptable way. But I love the idea of bringing in some science into this activity. I love it. This is a great thing, again, to have for students to be able to access at a different time or before you give them the content. All right, let's try another one. All right, so we have another person just needs to remember to select that everyone can view. So I think we may have to show that one more time. Check out Jessica's. Ooh, I love it. Jessica, can you tell us a little bit about what you created? Any challenges?
Sure. Hopefully you can hear me. I don't know if my mic works very
Yeah,
well.
perfect.
Okay, awesome. So I teach reading, obviously, if you couldn't guess. And so I have a few students who are, language learners for English or English language learners. And so I like to have visuals so they can see what the expectations are, as well as a quick reference in writing, as well as what my expectations are for whatever we are doing. And so this is our silent sustained reading expectations.
I love it. I love the different types of graphics that you used. I just think it's a beautifully designed. And I think that's the most amazing thing about Canva is how Canva makes things so easy it's so easy to make things that look nice. So thank you so much, Jessica, for sharing. Let's see, let's take a look, see if we can peep somebody else's design. All right, Leanne, would you like to talk a little bit about what you created, any challenges or new things that you learned?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Well, I liked the summer vacation idea. We're taking our little girl to the beach. She'll be almost 2. And she's just going through a phase where she likes to be like naming things, and then she also likes to hold them. So everything she sees, she wants to hold. Um, and I mean, it was fun. I didn't really run into any problems, though I have used Canva a lot. So,
Well, I love it. I think it's really great. And I think this is a great example of how you can use it in a primary classroom. You could use something like this where you're labeling the room. I know that when I was in the classroom, in the lower grades, the power of print in your classroom, my room was like everything that could have a label had a label. But this is a great way to kind of do that in places where you can't necessarily stick a label on it, but you're still exposing students to the vocabulary and a visual in a more organic way. So I love it. I also noticed that this was shared with the ability to be able to comment. So if you notice on this design, when we click on this, just a quick little comment, notice you can also add little stickers. Great for if you're in the classroom. So I left a comment here. So just wanted to show you what that looked like if you were to do that. You can even see where people are that are viewing it. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for everyone that's been sharing. I really appreciate it because it helps us get ideas for what we can do. So let's take a look, see if we can find another one. All right, Christina, are you able to share a little bit about your design? Any challenges or new things that you learned? All right, I think she may have stepped out, but all I know is that her summer goals look amazing. And I love that there's a lot of different types of elements here, sleeping in, beaching, hiking, camping. I love it. You could do something like this again. Great for primary classrooms with verbs. I could see students spending some time finding images that show a verb. But again, love it. And it is a comment version. So you are able to leave a comment for those of you that may have clicked on the link already. And these are all in the chat if you're coming in and haven't noticed that. All right, let's take a look at another one. All right, Daphne, it looks like you have a very similar summer to myself. Daphne, are you able to share a little bit about your design, any challenges or successes along the way?
Yes, of course. So what I wanted to do is have the ability or learn how to duplicate images and try to match them one next to the other one. And that was made with the ocean background and then the clouds and the pine trees. So that was my goal, kind of see if I could replicate images. I teach digital communication in the 21st century for um, higher up middle school. And I believe that this will be very useful for them to create new ways of presentations or not so much like the one that had all the labels, but to communicate in a different way. So I hope you like it.
I love it. I love that you challenged yourself. You wanted to see how you could make it look, merge the two images together, make them look very similar. I didn't even notice that until you mentioned it. So thank you for sharing that. Enjoyed looking at that design. Let me continue going through. All right, a pizza fraction one. I love it. I love the use of the photo with the comics as well. I see Esperanza posted that as well. Um, would you like to share anything, Deborah? Anything new that you learned about creating a comic in Canva, or maybe your thoughts behind why you selected this one?
I teach fourth grade. Well, I will be teaching fourth grade this year. And I was thinking more about the problem solving, and we use the UPSI model. So for each of the frames, the students, we do the understand part, the plan, which would be using the pizza model where they have to determine how to slice it. And then there's the solving where they actually can, write an equation to go to it and then check, through estimating or just explaining or justifying their answer. And that's what I was thinking about going through that process. And I left the comments so that the students can actually, type their thinking inside of there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I love it, and we do UPSI as well, and I know that when students go to draw the pizza sometimes, and they try to create a visual to be able to see something like that, even when it's kind of upper elementary, when it's equivalent fractions, for example. But this is a great way to have that visual tool without having to worry about things being cut in equal parts as they are already done in Canva for you. But I love this activity, so I'm glad that you were able to not only use it, but think about how you could apply it in your classroom. Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, let's take a look. Ooh, we've got another one, Summer here. This one is Janet. Janet, would you like to talk about what you did? I know you were one of the Canva experts here. Can you tell us about your design?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I was just playing a little bit with it, trying to add a few sounds. I am the librarian and I get to see all of the students. And so I figured, well, instead of me telling them, what I did over the summer, maybe having them with the younger kids come in and take a look at these paints and then talk a little bit about it. And so on the second one, I just asked them to take a look and guess what the person might be saying, or what are they doing, and describe. And so I just kind of played a little bit with it, not a whole lot, but in the time that was given.
Well, I love it. And I think that it's a great idea of how to bring in Canva Comics into a library. I also think about how something like creating a comic to go over expectations, say in a library, in a classroom, in a science lab. Comics are a really great way to see even what kids would think science safety looks like, because I know sometimes they have some very interesting ideas about that. Still going through to take a look. Thank you again for sharing. We have Luceros next. Ooh, Luceros, I love this. Can you talk about what you created? All right, maybe Lucero is not around, but I agree with what I see Esperanza said. I love the polka dot. It added like some consistency throughout the frames. And then I see a variety of images as well. Beautiful work. and
Hello.
see what. Oh, are you there?
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
we're
Trying to figure
good.
out how
Can
my
you
microphone works.
It's okay. Can you share? We were just gushing about what a great visually appealing comic you have created so far. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you created?
Thank you. Yeah. So I was just getting a little creative with it. I'm primarily technology. So I didn't really know how to um incorporate like education based like a subject with it. But yeah, I had fun with it.
Well, I mean, really, just even sequencing events, that's something that even students struggle with sometimes. So you could sequence your summer, sequence the time. I mean, it almost looks like they went from a roller coaster into a river. And so when I first saw it, I thought about the tube shoot in New Braunfels, where you're kind of like going down a roller coaster in your tube.
Oh yeah.
But again, I mean, comics, you have so much freedom and flexibility. And again, we go back to those 4 C's we talked about at the very beginning of the session.
Mhm.
So, I mean, really, right now, this was to kind of play around with it, get the aspects of how you can bring it in. And hopefully, by sharing ideas with others in here, we have some more ideas of how we can bring it into our classroom. So, thank you for
I want to
sharing.
highlight too with Lucetto something that's a little different that they were able to do that I really like is instead of using the text boxes, another option for comics is to have these squares, and they have a different meaning. When you have the square like that, and this is something you can talk to your students about, it can be like kind of a change in perspective, right, or point of view. So here, when we have the square, it's the omniscient narrator who's telling us something about the image, right? Versus when we have the thought bubbles or the text bubbles, then that is a character speaking. And so that's another like just kind of level that comics has that can visualize the different points of view that you might use in a narrative structure. You might have, the omniscient God saying what's going on, or you might have the character explaining what's happening. And I love that Lucetto did that without even thinking about it, just added another element that we could talk about, and appreciate the polka dots. Such a fun design element as well. Thank you.
All right, I see. Thank you, Esperanza. I agree, and I love that you were able to point that out for us because I didn't even consider that. I see, Artie, you were able to you were having some issues, some difficulty with sharing, but I was able to open this here about bullying. And is this what you would? Is this the actual template, or did you add to this, Artie?
Hello, everybody. I added to it. I'm just playing around with it. I'm like LOTC. I'm a civics class, but I'm trying to involve more or integrate more technology as we get into like a cybersecurity, cyber defender, how to protect yourself as part of our curriculum. So it's not a full technology class, but I think as we get kids I help show them. They probably can show me more, but involve them with animation and any technology online, and they can build their own. They can build their own products as well. This is one of our classes. We have an anti-bully theme in October, and we attend for at least the past 6 years. So I'm trying to look at things during the projects today that I can build on over the summer to show them something and have them involved as their own project as we do out of school extracurricular activities as well.
Well, I'm happy that you are attending the session because you're right. I think your students, sometimes they teach us more about some of the tech tools, but I love that you're open to trying new things as well. So thank you for sharing that as well. I did stop sharing because we are getting close towards the end of our session, and I did want to make sure that I supported you with also how you would print out or share these designs that your students have created. I'm not going to show you through Canva. Instead, I just have the 2 different ways here, and we can talk about it because I think that for the most part, sharing it digitally is probably the way that you're going to do it unless you want to showcase for parents. And so that would be, they start with the same. When you go to share, and you're going to click on download. And so when you have that download screen, you're going to be able to decide either what printable file type you have or that you want to have. So if it is a comic, most of the time, the best one would be PDF, especially if just knowing SAISD, PDFs are so flexible. You could use that in Lumio, you can use that in Canvas and Cami, so just a lot of different things. So that would be one. And of course, you can also easily print a PDF, email a parent a PDF. So a PDF is a very useful file type to be able to then have a print copy of something. And then with the soft copies, I noticed some of you created comics and had movable elements. So just know that you do have the opportunity to be able to export as an MP4. So you have those movable elements. If it's a shorter amount of movement, you could even create a GIF or GIF, depending on how you say it. But any questions about downloading? Because if it is something that you think that you're going to have a difficult time with, I can screen share. I just wanted, for time's sake, to be able to get you the credit and everything. So any questions about downloading?
I have
And
a
again, you
two-part
will.
question, one part about downloading.
Sure, go ahead.
Can you embed videos into these as well?
Yes. So earlier I did embed a video of the creation and that was from YouTube. So you are able to embed YouTube videos, videos that you've created in Canva, MP4. So, you know, say you created something in Screencastify, you can upload that video and embed it into Canva. So if that's something you're interested in, just know that there are other Canva sessions available. But there are also a lot of Canva resources that Canva Education or Canva Design School or Canva for Educators, which I have shared in the resources as well to kind of help you with that. You said you had another part as well?
Yes, ma'am. Second part, you can just answer this yes or no. I'll play with it later. As we do this, since we're, you know, in a synchronous, asynchronous world, because I also do asynchronous still with students that just don't come as much, and I still give them academic credit if they get online and do it. This is all, you can share all this on Canvas, or you can share this on Canva when they open it up as a project as well. So this is, you can share this with by classroom built with Canvas, yes or no?
Yes, there is a way, and there's a whole, in fact, it's very helpful. There is a YouTube video that will walk you through creating a Canvas assignment. Are you an SAISD employee?
I am, ma'am, and the YouTube's helped me more than a lot of the PowerPoint type or whatever slides. So I just usually Google it. So I'm new to Canva. I haven't used Canva before this session, so I'm already intrigued by it.
Yeah, and just know that we are next year going to be fully on board with the integration of Canvas, so you will be able to easily share items in Canvas that are Canva. So awesome way to be able to bring that in.